So this class is about testing. You guys remember that RSpec class that we did back in the day? So this is almost the exact same thing. Not even almost. It is the exact same thing, just in JavaScript instead of in Ruby. I'd like you guys to sort yourselves into the following categories. And you can see them up here on the board. You've used TDD and you liked it. You've used TDD and you hated it. You haven't used it but you want to, and you haven't used it and you don't want to. And so we're just going to make a quick little Google Doc for this. So take a couple seconds to fill that out. Should look something like this. We're just going to ask that you put down, you pick one of these 4 categories and put down your answers for it. I can't edit it. Can you guys edit it? Is that the problem? Yeah. Yeah, gotcha. Okay, 2 shakes. I'll bet Erica's doing the exact same thing right now. There we go. All right, now we should be good. Oh, yep, and I see an anonymous moose coming in, so should be making progress. So don't just write down your name, write down your reason for being in one of these categories. You're always ambivalent. I'm gonna ask you to pick one.
By using it, you mean more than just that during that one class?
Yes, more than during that one class, of your own volition, not because I told you to. You went and used it. So really, there's only one situation, I guess, in which you would have, which is in the last project. But we're talking about just RSpec in general. I am assuming that no one in here has used Jasmine. Just like, have any of you used TDD? Did any of you write RSpec or anything? I have a pretty good feeling on what the answer is going to be. All right, so I'm getting a pretty good understanding of who has not used it, but the only one writing down a reason so far has been like Chris and, oh, well, no, there's some trickling in. But what we're going for here isn't just to get a count. I'm not really interested in the numbers. I'm going to see what the reasons are for why you guys feel the way you do. Ah. Yeah, perhaps this isn't the best idea that we've ever had, but yeah, right? All right, cool. Well, that was fun. So I'm just going to assume that, well, instead of just looking at the answers on that thing, since people are overriding everyone else, let me just ask you guys. Like, it looks like the class is split between people who have not used it but would like to, and have not used it and wouldn't like to. So, anyone want to like just share why you fall into one of those categories? Chris? Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool, fair enough. How about why you aren't using it? Why didn't you guys use it? Kelly? Yeah, why didn't you? Okay, cool, good answer. What else? Monty? Yeah, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bryce? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Eric, where you just like, yeah, you just like write stuff and then you check to see if there are any errors and then you keep on trucking, right? That kind of thing. Yeah. Anything else? Andy?
Yeah, I wanted to share like a kind of funny little story that I had interaction when I was at instructors, and I still kind of think this way, but I think kind of like Brendan does, where I'm gonna write the code might be a little bit quicker. And for this, like for the purpose of this class, I feel like maybe that's the right solution. I still don't know, right? I think we still need to teach it, and you guys need to learn. But the reason why I say this is I asked Matt and Adam one day. I was like, I mean, why text? Like, it seems like I should just write the code because I know what the code is going to be. Why should I write this test? It will take extra time to write this.
You stole my thunder, man. They're all supposed to say like why they don't want to test, and then I'm gonna say like you all are wrong. Here's why testing is good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, sure. And so, yeah, it's like I mentioned yesterday with whatever it was we were talking about yesterday. What did I teach yesterday? Oh, object-oriented JavaScript. Yeah, like not really feeling like a need for it because the apps we make in this class are pretty small. But when you get out in the real world and you start making bigger things, then it becomes a lot more important. So here's my prediction for the group projects this week. So you guys are going to be collaborating on these GitHub repos, right? Presumably, you guys are just going to be sharing one GitHub repo. You're probably going to like fork it down or whatever, make your own changes, push them back up, and someone's going to merge them together. So whoever is sort of like wrangling the main repo, whoever sort of owns the main repo, they're going to start, for one thing, probably getting a lot of merge conflicts. For another thing, when those things finally get resolved, it's going to be like, well, okay, so Jen just gave me her code, but do I know it actually works or not? So you're going to do the sensible thing, and you're going to quit NodeMon, restart NodeMon, reseed the database, open up the browser again, and then click around on every single link to make sure things work appropriately. I'm sure you guys did that in Project 2, where you quit Rails, restart Rails, reseed, do the whole bitness thing, and then go and click on everything and make sure it works. You may not have realized how much time you spent doing that, but you spent a lot of time doing that. I can tell you that because I have totally done it before. I don't really notice how much time I spend doing it because I feel like I'm being productive. Like, I'm doing things, I'm putting things and restarting things and running scripts. But it takes a long time. And that's time that could be better spent like actually moving this app forward, actually working on code. I shouldn't have to spend so much time just trying to cover my butt and make sure that like everything in this app works appropriately. Wouldn't it be nice if there was something I could just run that would do all this stuff for me? And I think that this is where a lot of the stress in Project Week comes from, even if you don't realize it. It comes from having to drop everything, reseed everything, and do all this stuff again and again and again. And even if you don't realize it, that takes a lot of time, that takes a lot of stress to get that stuff done. I think, so the thing about testing is that writing your tests first seems like a real pain in the ass at the start. And it seems like it takes a really long time. But you make up for it in the amount of time you save later on. I am 100% confident that if all of you were to really commit to writing tests, writing thorough tests before you even start the actual code for your project, you would have a much less stressful week. A much less stressful week. Things would go much easier with your project, and you'd be able to just like kick back and sip mojitos or whatever you do when you have free time. And I say that knowing that you guys may not do that because, this TDD thing, it's like a new thing and it's still kind of weird. But that is something that I would be willing to bet on. Andy, were you doing
I just want to kind of piggyback on that. When you learn about testing, it's like it's in real like isolation. You learn about testing, it's like, okay, I expect this to equal that. You write one test, you're like, oh, I've learned TDD, I've learned that. You don't really see the value of how it fits into a bigger picture because you learn it in isolation. You learn only like how to build like 2 or 3 tests now, which is what we're going to do today. Essentially, we're going to build a little bit more than that. But really, this value comes into play when you have a whole test. For example, Brian, we are really bad about testing, but we started creating some tests. And now when we go to implement a feature, if it breaks something, we can just run our entire test suite. We don't have to worry about what's going to be written tests so that we know which pieces are broken. Like that new implementation is really broken. We can just fix that one piece. We don't have to fix. We don't have to look at everything. We just have to look at it. So when we learn about testing in isolation, it's kind of it feels kind of moving and useless, but it's more of a big more of a once you have an entire test, then it's a lot than rather than one.
So the thing about like what we're saying here is we're basically saying like it's a good thing, just trust us. But what we're going to do over the course of this class is do some stuff that I think you really will see making your projects work better in the long run. Lee, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just wondering, with testing, I just have one of the reasons I don't do it is other than like not exactly sure how, but
Mhm.
how comfortable
The short answer is yes. The longer answer is basically going to be the rest of this class, and then we can talk about that again, like when the class is done. But just one thing I want to show off really quick is if you look at Ember.js's repo in here, you don't even need to do it. I'm just showing this thing right here. There is a lot of stuff. Did I just close it? Yeah, I guess so. It went somewhere. There we go. There's a lot of stuff going on here. They have over 11,000 commits. They have a whole bunch of contributors, lots of issues, lots of different things going on. And down here, they have built right into their documentation how to run tests on all of this stuff. Imagine what a heinous mess this would be if there weren't any tests. I mean, it would be like 3 full-time jobs just managing all of the contributions that are coming into this thing. And I think you might start getting sort of a taste of that when you're working together on your group projects this time around. One thing to point out in here, all this stuff right here, you're going to see this on a lot of different GitHub repos. These are the results of their tests, especially this build passing thing right here. This is this thing called Travis CI. CI stands for Continuous Integration. And this is the same thing we use to test Garnet whenever we're doing stuff with it. And if we look in here, oh wow, well, looks like they have a failing test. But if we were to like really look into this and everything that's in here, we could probably see exactly what's causing the test to fail. And so this testing, it's nice when you're working personally, just by yourself, because you don't have to go and dismiss and like click on everything all over again. And it's really nice when you're working with other people as well, because it takes care of all of that, like figuring out whether or not someone wrote crap code for you. But anyway, so over the course of this class, we are going to be using this example of, because Erica was in a frozen mood and had that "Do you want to build a snowman" song stuck in her head. So the tests are going to be in here as a test for building a snowman. But what we're going to do over the course of this class is use these tests as a planning tool. Just using these tests as a planning tool. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about that in a second. But first, I want to get set up with that. So what I'm going to ask you to do is CD into the folder for your project. If you don't have a folder for your project, that's no problem. Just make one. So here I'm going to make a folder just called Build Snowman, or Snowman Builder, I guess. So I'm just making a blank folder called Snowman Builder. And again, it doesn't matter if you're actually in your project folder or not, but I am going to ask you to sort of work with your project idea over the course of this class, however fleshed out it may be. All right, so I have that, and then let's see. Oh, you know what? I actually skipped ahead a little bit. I shouldn't have done that. Before we get to that, I'm just thinking about like what I would want a snowman builder to do. So if I had this thing that was going to build snowmen, I might want it to do these 5 things right here. I know that's in gray, so you can't really read it, so let me move over here so it's easier to see. There we go. So I want my snowman builder to create an object. I want it to create a snowman. I want each snowman to have a name. I want each snowman to have a carrot nose. I want each snowman to have a stick for arms. And if the snowman's name is Olaf, then I want it to like warm hugs. So I know this seems completely unrelated to code right now, and that is exactly the point. But the purpose of writing these things out right now is it's sort of an outline. If all of these things are true, if I were to create something and all of these things were true for that something I created, when I say that I mean this thing I created, it was an object that had a nose, that had stick arms, so on and so forth, then I would think, okay, I built a snowman. So the whole idea here is that when everything in here passes, that means I have built a snowman. What I'm going for in here is to encapsulate everything that makes up a snowman. This is totally not an exhaustive list. I could write tests forever. I could write like, it needs to be made out of snow. It should comprise 3 round balls of consecutively smaller diameters. It should have coal eyes. I could keep writing tests forever. There's no like, I mean, I could get super specific, like each snow crystal should be made out of water. And so you sort of have to consider, like, how specific you need to get with this. For now, I'm going to say, let's just think about more high-level stuff about your project. What I'd like you to do is to take a minute to write out some tests for your code. So I'm going to ask you to write 2 describe statements and, let's see, 4 or 5? 5 total it lines. So taking all of those tests that I wrote over here, if I were to put them in RSpec, it might look something like this. And basically just taking the English from over here and putting describe and it in front of different sections of it. This code right here, this code wouldn't run. It wouldn't work appropriately. And that's perfectly fine. Don't worry about making it run and work appropriately later on. What I would like you guys to do for 5 minutes is think about your project and think about 2 different describes and 5 different its that you could use for your project. So the difference between describe and it is describe is used to just say, well, what you're describing. It would be a model, probably. So all of your projects should have 2 models. So you would probably have 2 describe statements. You may have more models than that, but let's just stick with 2 for now. So you would probably have 2 describes. You can put a describe in a describe. So this is saying this object when something in particular has happened to it. In this case, a snowman when it's named Olaf. And then it is just saying all of the different things it should have or should be able to do. And I, like looking at this stuff, if I knew nothing about code, I would be able to read this just fine. This reads just like regular English. And that's what I want you guys to write, is just regular English. The only constraint is that each line should begin with either describe or it. That's the only constraint. But aside from that, it's just regular English. So here's how this is going to work. I'm going to ask you to take 5 minutes to do that. And then I'm going to ask you to get into a group of 3 people, none of whom share the same project. So you're going to be with 2 people who are all working on different projects from you. Then you guys are going to take 8 minutes. Each of you will take 8 minutes. And in that 8 minutes, you'll give a brief word, what your project is, what your idea is. Again, it doesn't really matter how fleshed out it is, just what you've been thinking about so far. So a brief description of what your project is, and then just read through your tests, and then just ask if they have any feedback on your tests. And each of you, in your group of 3, each person is going to take 8 minutes to do that. So you're going to start off 5 minutes just by yourself, writing tests exactly like this, just in a text file somewhere or something, doesn't matter where. And then we'll split everyone up into groups of 3, and you'll meet up and do that. So, questions about that? Please.
I'm having a hard time relating second describe. So like if we talk about either we like describe like artist or what you were
So this would describe an artist in a particular state. They don't really have a need for that in Tutor yet, but if Tutor was a little bit fancier, here you could have like describe an artist, and here describe an artist who has no songs, or describe an artist who has songs. And then what goes inside that is the different tests, the different things that that artist in that particular state should have. Do you see what I'm saying? So this is sort of like an extension of that model. It's a model, it's that model when it's in some particular state. It has a certain name, or it has a certain collection of things, or something has been done to it, but that model in some kind of state. Other questions? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start the timer. And again, you have 5 minutes, and after that, we'll split people up.